And welcome to opening night at Colonial Downs. Very excited. The Thursday opener, 10 races, 107 horses pre-scratches. Always going to be a few, but first time racing in
6 years
in Virginia. So we're very excited to be a part of it. I'm Jason Beem. I'm going to be the track announcer. Merv Huber-Calvo, he is going to be our analyst, and he'll be in the paddock. Throughout the signal, we'll kind of be trading off, doing handicapping talk.
I'll be in the paddock.
You'll be in the paddock. I'll be upstairs. I got my little lipstick camera. We're hoping we'll have more of a studio for this going forward, but for now, we're just using the announcer's booth. But I thought it would just be good to get the pre-game show, so to speak, available earlier than normal. I feel like most tracks it's 45 minutes to post, and most people aren't watching then. So give you guys the chance to hear what we have to say about the races, and also give you guys a chance to give us feedback. You can find our Twitters. We're easy to find. He's at Merv Huber, and I'm at Beem Awards, and we'll put the Twitters right here.
Let us know what you think. Give us some beef on Twitter.
be gentle, though. Please be gentle. But we're going to talk about the 10-race card. But Merv, approaching this meet, I mean, it is, people know of Colonial, we've seen races here, but it is in a way new. So we're all kind of going through this learning experience, especially here on opening night, because we have no basis for how the track's going to play. We have no basis for anything.
No, but it's shaping up to be a great meet. 15 days of racing, $500,000 worth of purses on average each night. It's going to draw horses from all over, and that's what we've seen on the opening night card. We've got horses from Florida, Maryland, Illinois. I've seen a lot of Europeans on the card in the first day, so something exciting to look forward to.
To me, that's going to be one of the interesting parts, is to follow kind of where the winners are coming from. I mean, like, my gut instincts are telling. Well, I mean, there's some New York horses that are coming down. Those are often going to be class droppers. I think the Laurel horses are always very tough. I think that circuit in general, those horses travel up to Saratoga and do well. There's a lot of West Virginia, a lot of Charlestown horses that are going to be running here at Colonial. So
Pennsylvania
horses as well, and I think some Gulfstream horses as well. So it really is a hodgepodge of different circuits all kind of meeting up.
Makes it fun.
Yeah, well, it makes it a challenge, that's for sure. And we're not screwing around. The first race of the meet,
14 horses right
but
off the bat.
I should say, I know your top pick here is re-entered on Saturday.
I saw that.
So
I saw that.
Number 3, Orbert. Again, we're doing these shows a day in advance, so we won't have live scratches or anything on here. But of course, the Colonial Downs signal will have those. But yeah, Orbert, who was 5-1 on your line, a big scratch, really.
Yeah, if he does scratch, I thought he would offer some good value. Is it Orbert or is it Bear?
I'm going
to see how you call that.
Well, because it's Albert the Great's the grandsire, so I'm going with Orbert.
Okay, we can go with that.
Yeah.
I landed on this horse. It's going against one of my favorite handicapping angles. I love to bet against 3-year-olds with older horses, even up to and including August. But I kind of like the way this horse was coming into this race.
But it doesn't matter now. He's not in it.
What? Is he officially scratched now?
Well, they can't enter for Saturday and then run on Thursday, right?
Well,
I feel like they can't. We'll find out. We're going to all learn together here.
Well, if he's in, I think you'd offer good value.
Okay.
I think you could get 8-1 on him. If he is scratched, gosh, my second choice is going to be kind of a second-place finisher, a professional second-place finisher, been second in his last 2. I might have to rethink this a little bit.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the first race is 13 or 14 horses. Like I said, we don't know the scratches yet, but it's a wide open race. To me, there's no clear decisive favorite in this spot. It's a non-winner of 2, 16,000. I mean, it's just a good old-fashioned claiming race at 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. Now, we should talk about the turf courses and the dirt course for that matter. Dirt course, there's 2 races on the dirt, and we'll talk about those when we get here. But our turf course, it's one big, huge course, 180 feet wide. But it's been split up into 2 courses, an inner and an outer. And so the inner turf course is basically a 7 furlong, kind of a standard American turf course, right? 7 furlongs for an inner turf. The outer turf will be 1 mile and an 8th. So our 1 mile and an 8th races, which we have one later on the weekend. I think there's also a 1 mile and 3/16 race coming up later on in the weekend. Those will be on the outer turf. And the sprints, the turf sprints will generally be on the outer turf as well. So the mile and a 16th, those will almost always be on the inner turf course. And it will delineate in your program which turf course it is. And I think they were saying, I was talking to the trackman, I think they're going to move the rails out a little bit the first couple of weeks, and then for week 4, when the Virginia Derby happens, it'll be back to where it is this weekend. So if you're planning ahead for the Virginia Derby, these are the rail settings that you're going to have. Again, I don't know that that's official, but I think that's kind of what they're looking at. But anyways, back to this first race, Merv. It does start our daily double. Now, not rolling doubles. So daily doubles in the first race and then the last 2 races. So if you are a double player, I know some people love rolling doubles. To me, it makes it a little more special to have just the traditional opening
Early
double
night.
and late double. So maybe the pools will be better, for that as opposed to just kind of dribbling throughout the card.
We'll find out. We talked about horses coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
This race is a good example of
Yeah.
that. You got horses from Florida, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Illinois, and West Virginia,
Yeah.
all in just this one race.
Yeah, this one's a little bit bonkers. I kind of was steering. I mean, my default is if I'm having trouble with something, I'm just going to go towards the ones I like with the highest price. And so I kind of found my way a little bit toward the outside. Inchesky was one I thought was a little interesting. Went and watched his last race at Laurel. He broke very well, but then he kind of got rank and just didn't look very happy. But I go back, that was kind of a starter allowance handicap type race. And so I go back 2 starts to Suffolk, and he ran a pretty good race in a 10-horse field when he was close up. And Merv, there's like no true speed in this race.
Yeah, I noticed that. There's not much speed at all. I thought maybe the 11 would benefit from that, and I kind of liked the 11 Partisan Divide as a little bit of a long shot for that reason alone. I thought he's got good enough speed to probably get out there a little early, and I noticed that he's shedding the blinkers. I love that angle as well.
Yeah, I'm real curious to see who gets the leader. I thought maybe Support Our Cause could be a front runner type. New Barn, Gerald Brooks, who's a very, very good trainer, and the horse they've been wanting to run on turf. It's just Parks has just not had good luck with the turf for a little while now, and so you go back to his turf effort at Aqueduct, and it was okay, third beaten 7, but it seems to me, I mean, he's got 4 off the turf races on his page, so it seems like they've been wanting to get him on there. They've only got him on there twice, and he hasn't run great, but I think he's interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned Inchesky in that race at Suffolk 2-back. One thing I've noticed this weekend with horses, a lot of them coming from Suffolk.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that form holds out here at Colonial.
Yeah, so I was at the closing day, Suffolk, and they had, they run for big purses up there on those. They were kind of doing those little 2-day weeks, so going to be interesting to see. But the 2 outside horses, Merv, I thought big bombers, and to me these were both 2 that you could probably leave out.
Yeah, I think so, except the 14 may have a little speed coming in with a bunch of sprint races from Charlestown, so maybe he could actually affect the early pace.
Yeah, the Charlestown runners are so interesting because there's no turf at Charlestown, and they're coming here where it's almost all turf. In fact, Friday and Saturday are both all turf cards. No dirt races. There's going to be 2 on the card here. So we move to race 2 and a maiden special weight event, $50,000. Again, the purses here are very, very good. 6 furlongs on the main track. So worth noting again, the main track is 1.25 miles around. So it is very, very big. In a way, I don't want to say Belmont-esque, but it's getting there. And the half-mile pole here is where kind of the 3/8 pole normally is. So just to kind of gauge that, the 6 furlong races actually start, most tracks they're starting that way from the announcer's booth, and this one they're starting about halfway down the backstretch.
Not a long run into that first turn.
No, and it's a long run home. I mean, it's over a 1/4 mile. I think the quarter pole is just inside of when they straighten out. But again, we have no real basis, and we're not going to get a lot of information on these dirt races because, like I said, we only got 2 the first night and none days 2 and 3. So race number 2 though, Merv, I know you made the favorite, the outside runner, who's a first-time starter.
Yeah, and I thought he would take a lot of money based solely on the connections that he brings into this race. China Horse Club, Windstar, plus there's 2 bullet works in his last 3 moves.
Yeah.
I took a look at this field and I thought this horse could be a very heavy favorite in here.
What's interesting to me is the 8 horse is the second choice, and I think rightly so, by the way. And the horse has been running against some pretty good maiden types. I mean, the maiden special races at Oaklawn and Churchill are really, really good, especially Derby Day maiden special weights that this horse was in. And he's not getting embarrassed in those races. And his speed figures, I'm a Brisnet player and I use optics for pace, but his speed figures kind of tower above everybody else that's been running, but he's also 0 for 12.
Yeah, we ran in the Jeff Ruby Stakes as a maiden, and not all too poorly, beating less than 10 lengths in there.
Split the field.
He does turn back in distance, right? He's been running a route of ground for a while now, and he turns back to 6 furlongs. So that'll be interesting because he shows speed in those route races, but is that the type of speed that is going to get him to the front in this race?
And he was beat last time in a $20,000 claimer. Claimed off Dwayne Lucas that day. They had been running him in those maiden special weights that again are almost $100,000 and are $100,000 at Churchill. So to me, it says they were ready to move on from him. So it was claimed, goes to Alan Ferris, or Ferris Allen rather, and shows up here. to me, this is just a real interesting horse because, I mean, he totally fits, totally makes sense, but man, has he shown a penchant for not winning.
Ooh, 12 races and he hasn't found the winner's circle yet. That's hard to take.
What about there's a Charlestown runner here making trouble who actually ran a pretty good race. I went back and watched the replay, didn't get away very well, and made a pretty nice rally into, I mean, the fractions are deceiving at Charlestown because it's a bull ring. So they go 24-48, and in my head I'm thinking, God, 6.5 furlong, they were crawling, but you forget that they're turning in that first quarter as opposed to, most traditional tracks where it's a straight run for basically the whole first quarter mile. But what do you make about that horse? And also the first timer, the number 2 Luncheon, who you made a pretty reasonable odds of 6-1.
Yeah, I felt the same way about Making Trouble. I thought that was interesting. I watched that race as well. It was kind of an awkward start. Did make up some ground late in there, and he actually turns back in distance a little bit from 6.5 at Charlestown. It was really close. I pegged him as my third pick, actually, but it was really close with the 4 as well, who kind of had a similar style run at Colonial Downs. Kind of had an awkward start and made up ground. I think both of them were 4th beaten too in their only lifetime start. So it was just very close between the two of them. The 4 is a 5-year-old who was just making his debut a couple weeks ago, which I thought was also interesting. So it was between those two for my third pick.
Yeah, for the early double, I got to think people are going to go spread big in the first and be more narrow to probably the outside too. So if you're trying to look to make a big daily double score, I think that you got to try to look for someone other than those outside two, because I do think they're going to dominate the wagering. A, the 8 has been at least consistently pretty quick. And B, the 9 horses you said, the connections are very, very good. They paid a fair amount of money for the horse. It was funny, I was drawing in my program, the Silks, and I didn't look at the owners. I just looked white, green, and black emblem. I was like, I wonder what the emblem looks like, and then realized it was Windstar. And easier to draw that one. So do you end up going with the 9 on top?
I did, yeah. 9-8. I couldn't really get away from that.
Okay. Race number 3, we move to the outer turf. Again, the turf sprints will be on the outer turf. It's a 1.125 oval, so a little more of a sweeping turn, whereas the inner track, the turns look pretty tight on the inner track, just from an upstairs observer, and I think we'll know more when the race, when we see how they kind of shape up, but just overhead it kind of looked like those inner turns are pretty tight. So I'm really curious to see how these races shape up and play. But field of 7 here, so a little bit of a break in terms of the big field size, which of course later on we'll get more to. I thought in here probably one of the bigger favorites on the card, the 3 Vincent William.
Yeah. I thought this race came up pretty salty.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be a prep for the Rosie Stakes later in the meet as well. I think you'll see one, maybe more of these come out and compete in that stakes race towards the end. I do think Vincent William will be one of the big favorites off the strength of his start at Arlington. I actually trying to beat him in here with the 2 Zano or Zano.
Yeah. I haven't decided yet.
He wired the field at Gulfstream in a maiden claimer, got a nice speed figure there.
Yeah.
I love the connections here. Anytime that Wesley Ward sends out a 2-year-old in a turf sprint stakes, I'm interested. Gets Paco Lopez. I think that he's a real threat to wire this field.
To me, these non-winner, or not non-winners too, but these first-time winner races for the maidens are always so interesting because we have the perfect example here. The inside 3 horses all broke well, all had kind of open leads, and all won in their last start. Now, granted, it was the second start for Zano, but first turf start, which we're on today. But they all had that kind of unopposed first start. They were just faster than all those other horses. And Vincent William was a pretty low favorite. Ravelli crushes him up at Arlington Park. He's the leader in the standings by 1 billion. And that's, this is kind of one of his games. Is him and Valdivia is coming down to ride for him. They have these young horses and they can just blast out of there, similar to what Wesley Ward does. But it's just going to be a whole different ballgame if there's 3 of them vying for it. And so that's where I was kind of trying to maybe look elsewhere. I know you were interested in the 5 So Street.
Yeah, well, if you can forgive his last race, his debut was pretty impressive, right?
Yeah.
If he hadn't run that last race, he'd be in that same group that you just mentioned, right? Went out there, contested the early pace, and ran away with it.
And maybe he's one of those ones who, when he did get looked in the eye, doesn't want to, go on.
Could be. They're trying him on the grass. I think he's worth giving another shot, right? That last race maybe just too bad to be believed. So I've got him as my second choice, and then I put Vincent William in as my third choice. Did it worry you at all that he got a little wobbly legged at the end of that last race?
I mean, he was so clear, but that was going 4.5, and he, if you watch the replay, he shot out of there. He was 3 in front in 2 jumps. I mean, it was crazy how quick and how effective he is. Like I said, for me, the big question mark with him is what happens if he gets looked in the eye, because I just think it's just a different deal when there's horses around you. And granted, he is drawn to the outside of those other two. The horse on the outside, DW Fitz, I feel like is worth talking about. Gets Lasix for the first time. Watched the debut at Delaware. The horse got out pretty sharply, found himself kind of just in a good spot, and ended up going off to win. And actually, a couple of the also-rans in that race are in another race a little bit later on. But I thought there was room for improvement. The horse is, it was a promising debut. He was bet, and Jamie Ness is a 20-something% trainer.
Yeah, and Ness has the So Street in there as well. So this
Yeah.
is Ness's other horse. I think they both have big shots.
Yeah, I just find I love DW Fitz to being able to, kind of watch what these inside three do, because I think they're going to be smoking. And so if Daniel can kind of put that one into the second flight, I think maybe a chance at a little bit of a price. Let's move on to race 4. Merv, do you got anything else for race 3 you want to chat about?
No, but I'm excited about it.
All right, we get back to the inner turf. We get back to a mile, so a 2-turn event, and it's a maiden special weight. Should mention that we do have coupled entries here at Colonial Downs. So you will have 1 and 1As. I think there's even a 2 and a 2B coming up later on in the
Friday,
weekend.
yeah.
So if I know some people love coupled entries, some people don't. So just letting you guys know what to expect. But we do have a coupled entry here. Paul Fout has the 1 and 1A Speed Alert, and Wildcat, who you have at 6-1 on the odds board. Who'd you make the favorite in here? Not My Money, right? The 8 horse?
Yeah, Not My Money is the morning on favorite, 5-2, slight favorite.
Has been close. Knocking on the door.
Has been close. What,
Lot of
five
knocking on the door.
times
Yeah.
hit the board from 9 starts. Hasn't
Yeah.
found that winner's circle yet, and I'm not really using it actually in my
Okay.
top 3. I landed on Beale Street in the top spot. This is a Matt's runner showing up here. Hasn't started since February, so
Yeah.
first start in a while, but the last 2 workouts looked pretty good. Loved that last start at Gulfstream Park. It was kind of way out of it early. It was a big field of 12. Had kind of a bad start there. Was able to kind of navigate a big field to be third, beaten just 3 lengths or so.
Yeah.
I think that this race might just set up for him again. I think that there's a lot of speed to run at here. I think there's 3 or 4 horses, right, that could go to the early lead and actually set some good fractions for him to run into.
Yeah, to me, this was one of those races where I think there are a couple that you can toss it. So it's a bigger field, but you can whittle it down a little ways. I don't want to say no hopers, but there's a couple horses that are going to be very big bombs. Goddess of Cash is one who you see the first start wasn't all that good, so maybe you think, maybe I can toss that one. But one of my favorite angles is horses who don't run at all in that first race, because it seems like second-time starters so often are the ones that pop, because something happened that day. They weren't happy. By the way, the horse was bet. He went off at under 3-1 in an 8-horse field for John Service, and John Service is going to have a pretty big presence down here.
Yeah, he's changing it up, going from a 6-furlong dirt race to a 1-mile turf race, so trying something different. Every right to improve. Actually, I'm definitely using Goddess of Cash.
And shout out the Monmouth Shippers. They've been going a lot of play. They've been going up to Saratoga and winning.
Following all of them?
Oh, buddy, come on! I gotta have a little pride for the one of the home teams. I actually really like the horse on the outside, Shikaka. I'm an Ace Ventura 2 fan, so it's a hunch love. But I just thought the horse showed speed and battled.
Mm-hmm.
If you go watch the race, kind of was dropping back a little bit and then dug back in. And I just think being on the inside of a duel is never the spot that I want to see a horse on. And like I said, it was beat 5th by 4.5, but I just thought it was a very solid effort, and I love now that the horse is going to be on the outside. There is one of the entry runners outside of the horse in the actual post position, but I like being out there and just a little bit of a change of scenery for this horse.
Does the amount of speed in the race bother you, though? I think that horse, Not My Money, Wolverette,
Yeah, there's a lot, but I don't know.
Tis a Date could all go to the front.
But I feel like maybe this horse can actually rate this time because if you're down on the inside, you can't. If you're up in the battle, it's like you're not going to drop back 4 or 5 spots because you just get swallowed, you get shuffled back, and it goes bad. So I think they were just kind of being aggressive there, and I don't know. It's one of those things where price is determined too. If everybody else thinks the same thing as I do, and the horse is 3-1, then no, I'm not interested anymore. But if it stays at 6-1, or if it floats up to 7 or 8-1, yeah, then you get interested. Anything else race 4 you want
Don't
to talk about?
underestimate how many Ace Ventura fans there might be.
Oh, buddy, big fan. Yeah. Shikaka. Race number 5, another maiden event, a mile on the grass. This one for the fillies and mares, and a big, huge field of 12. Again, I think we have 2 more 14-horse fields. There's 3 on the card, so it's the racing office certainly did their job. This race, we see some big name barns coming in for, and I think it's just a real good, intriguing maiden special weight.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier there's Euros.
Yeah.
Well, 4 of them on this card.
Yeah.
So 3 of them are making their domestic debut in this race, and 4 of them started their careers overseas.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to separate some of those.
Yeah, I'm the worst because I don't follow international racing like in that sense. So like I always feel like in races with first timers or with yours, I'm strictly going off trainer, auction price, and what I can see on the works page, and also what I hear people that actually know something about European racing talking about.
And I feel like in races like this, they do tend to take a lot of money, even if there's not a ton of information available for them.
Yeah.
With that in mind, I'm actually going to take a stab, a little bit of a price. I think I'll get a price on Small Moment in here, the 10. You're going to have to forgive that last race at Ellis, right? Beating 30 lengths on the dirt. Just put a line through it.
Yeah.
Go 2 back to Churchill, a $95,000 maiden special weight on the grass, going a mile and an eighth. 5th beaten 7, kind of a deceptively good effort, I think. If can get back to the grass and steps back up to that effort, I think she's got a big shot in here.
And also, it's supposed to be sunny and clear. I think 91 is the high for Thursday, and so that horse 3 back rather did get a firm turf versus the yielding one, and ran better in terms of closer and finish okay. It was maiden 75. This is a tough maiden special weight group. There's some big barns. Graham Motion with a firster in Memories. Graham has got a pretty big presence here. I feel like he's one of the bigger names we're going to see a lot of horses from. I think in general his horses are going to get bet a lot here.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
definitely.
And so really curious to see how that plays out.
Did you like Memories in here?
I
did your pick?
No, I'm admittedly not great when it comes to first time starters. And so I honestly, this was one of those races where I didn't have a strong opinion in at all. And
she's got a race actually, Memories.
Oh, what am I seeing here? See, I don't show one. Where'd you get one?
Sneaky.
It's literally not in my past performances.
I can see.
And I use a reputable past performance brand. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
What is it?
Take a look.
Was it a training race?
Yeah, May 2018.
Okay.
7th, beaten 11.
In where? Germany. Huh. Literally says first time starter.
Does that change your calculations?
Oh, it changes my thoughts on my past performance provider. That's what it does. Jonathan Thomas has a shipper from overseas who I know has 4 starts. All of them in Great Britain. Didn't really make an impression in any of them. Gets Lasix for the first time. It's August and stable. Again, they have a pretty strong presence here this weekend. I have a feeling those horses are going to take a bit of money. And Thomas has been sensational since going out on his own.
I liked Ever Changing in here. Was facing big fields over there and was only beaten a handful of lengths in each start. Thought maybe deceptively good.
Yeah.
It gets Paco Lopez in the yarns, which I like. And was training at Belmont Park, so ships down from New York too. So I think this might be a well-intended filly.
What about the Ben Colebrook runner down toward the inside? Just a look. First time starter. Ben is adequate at first timers at 9%. He's had some pretty nice horses in the last year or two and has had some success. I don't know. I just thought as a big price, maybe one that could run a little bit.
Yeah, I was also looking at the 6 Seductive, another European from Michael Stidham.
Yeah.
Again, very similar profile to Ever Changing, right? Has several races against big fields over in Europe, making her domestic debut. I think.
And it's been here for a while, right? Like they've been training since January, it's showing. So.
Right. Yeah. First start since October.
Yeah.
I think Ever Changing first start since November. So. Yeah, I guess I'm kind of like you. I don't follow European racing that closely, but those 2 kind of looked interesting to me in here.
What the Delacour runner, the number 7, Cara, showed pretty good speed last time at Monmouth. Wasn't able to hold it up. That was the week after I left, so I didn't see the race, so I had to go back and watch it on replay. But as the comment said, I thought was pretty accurate. Those mile and a 16th races at Monmouth, they start in that inner chute, and so they're kind of starting on a turn. Well, they're going straight, but they go right into a turn and then right into the second turn, and the 22 and 3, 46 and 3. Depending on where the rail setting is at, those times can change a little bit out of that chute, but that's a pretty honest fraction, and to me it just looks like she just wasn't settling down at all that day. So I'm curious to see what they do with her here, and like I said, we're going to hopefully learn in these first couple of races maybe how this course plays a little bit, because we just don't know.
We'll be experts by the end of the week. And we haven't mentioned the one though, Periodical for Shug, coming down. I don't know if you would consider this a drop. Two races, 6 furlongs. First start on the turf. Was only beaten 3 lengths in a maiden special weight at Aqueduct last out. That was in November of last year, so first start in a while. What did you think?
Well, yeah, and the third place finisher came back to win. I think Shug's another one who people love Shug, and Shug horses take a lot of money. Interesting Forrest Boyce riding this one, coming down for the race, obviously a mainstay in Maryland there. Again, I'm curious how the inside is going to play. I would think that stretching out and with the rail draw that they go here, this inner turf, the mile race, they're starting out at the 8th pole, so they have about a 3/16 of a mile run to the first turn, so it's not like folks are going to have to send to get positioned, but I do think it's an inherent advantage for a speedy type to have that inside draw. But I don't know, I worry about the Shug's horse taking too much money and being a little bit lower odds, but it's kind of an open race in that sense. Like I feel like there's not any clear-cut favorites.
Spread out.
Yeah, so you're very liable, you're very liable to get a number of 5-to-1s and 6-to-1s and 9-to-2s and those types.
Yeah, I think morning line I made with herself. Graham, you said take money. Yeah. I think could be the favorite.
No, I think Graham's horses are going to take a lot of dough. Let's take a short break, Merv. First half of the card done. Let's move on to race 6, which kicks off the 12% takeout pick 5. All right, back from our commercial break. We got commercials, Merv.
Nice.
No, we really don't. It's early in the season, though. The 6th race, though, does start our 12% takeout pick 5. I think a lot of people are going to be jumping in on this because of the low takeout, because of the build-up, and because of the big fields. It's not an easy sequence.
No.
It's the kind of sequence where you could easily start finding your ticket getting really, really expensive. And to me, I think what you do is you try to find your couple of best opinions and go real narrow there. And, I was taught you always want to try to create a couple of hurdles in your seat, because you don't, if you're going 5 and 6 deep, A, you're not going to hit it a lot of the time, but B, your tickets are just going to be so expensive that do you want to have to hit 5 legs to get 2-to-1? No. This sequence could pay monstrous, but you don't want to be invested monstrous. And so I always think in really tough sequences like that, find 1 or 2 real strong opinions. If you're right, you're going to really get paid, and if you're not, you move on to Friday night's card, which is going to have monster fields in the late pick 5 well. So the pick 5, a lot of people were asking, it's always going to be on the final 5 races of the card. So just know that. And Merv, we start off on the dirt, and a field of 8 in here, going a mile. I'm excited for a 1-turn mile. I've never called one.
Well, for 12%, you got to take a chance, right, with the pick 5. In terms of taking a stab, though, not in this race. I couldn't get a feel. I couldn't pick a single in this race, and it's only 8 horses. This might be the shortest field in the sequence, and you're going to have to take at least 2 or 3 in here, I think.
I'm curious to see what kind of betting the one Saintly Samurai takes, because it's a Graham horse who won at Laurel 2 starts back, not wire to wire, but was close up, has shown speed on dirt and again on turf last time. They tried turf at Saratoga, now comes back here, but draws inside, and there's other speed in here. Desert Springs got early foot. Gilded Drama's got early foot. He's No Bull has got early foot. There's literally half the runners who you would expect that want the lead.
Yeah, that's what drove me away from Saintly Samurai, who I think is most likely to be the favorite in this race.
Well, if you want to go away from the
Graham
favorite,
again,
toss it.
But that's what I keyed my pick. I landed on the 8th long-term relationship here. Thinking there's a lot of speed in here, and this race could very easily fall apart, especially for a 1-turn mile.
Mm-hmm.
Long-term relationship actually did run at the 1-turn mile, 2 back at Churchill Downs last time, and finished 2nd in a $50,000 starter allowance. Those races typically come up really tough. And he's kind of had that running style in his last few races. He kind of, when a race falls apart, he's always making up ground at the end and coming. I think this race shapes up exactly like that, so that's where I landed.
Well, and last race, he kind of got stuck behind. They went pretty slow. They went 24-3, 49-1, which 49-1 at Churchill is not fast.
Yeah. And but 2 back, it was 45. That's what I think the type of fractions he could see today.
I mean, that's the other thing, too. We don't know yet. 45 could be sizzling here. It could be slow.
The equivalent of 45.
Yeah.
Right?
And so it's really going to take some. I think that's where watching replays after the first weekend is going to help at least give us a gauge on that kind of stuff, because just see how the races shape up. And like I said, we're all kind of going into this a little blind. I'm sure there are some Colonial Downs regulars from back in the day that are coming into this meet with, I don't want to say preconceived notions, but feeling like they do know kind of which way they're going to go.
If you do know, get with us on Twitter. Let us know.
But I mean, He's No Bull totally fits in this spot. He's coming off a very, very good win for 30,000, condition 30,000, but he's you know, he makes I think a lot of them make sense in here.
More speed.
Yeah.
He's no ball.
What about Desert Spring? Because that first try against Winners was an allowance at Delaware. He ran really good that day.
More speed.
Yeah. I mean,
I took a look at the Street Trust, right? Just for the same reason as I went with long-term relationship.
Yeah.
Another that might benefit from a pace meltdown because he's done it his last few times.
yeah, and 8 to what do you have him on? 8-1 at the line, and coming out of the starter allowance race in Indiana, and prior to that had been at Churchill and had ran pretty big. He's very consistent. I mean, he kind of shows up almost every time. The only time he really didn't was that Oaklawn race, and that was first off a layoff. And if you look, they went pretty fast, and he was kind of up in it. He was, 3-path and wide. So very, very honest horse for trainer Tracy Young, who just claimed the horse back at Oaklawn, and he's run kind of just the same races he ran before, at least from a speed figure standpoint.
Yeah, it looks like earlier this year they were trying to make him kind of a marathon horse. I see some longer races, a mile and 3/4, mile and 9/16.
I remember that.
Now back to the one-turn mile.
I remember that Oaklawn mile and 3/4 race. And he ran pretty decent there. He was up on the lead. Yeah. All right, let's move on to race number 7. It does start the late pick 4 and state bred maidens. Now, Merv, we should give some hints on the whole state bred thing here. So you're going to see Virginia breds, and you're going to see Virginia certified, which what it means is, so there hasn't been racing in Virginia in 6 years, right? You'll see horses in this race. In fact, the 1A Coleraine is a Kentucky bred, so you might be like, why is it in a state bred race? So Virginia certified essentially means that the horse spent 6 continuous months in the state of Virginia before December 31st of its 2-year-old year. So basically was reared here or was broke here or just lived here for 6 months. They have to get a certification for that, and if they do, they were given Virginia certified residency, so to speak.
Yeah, and this race came up really tough, I thought.
Tough for the morning line maker?
Handicap, but also like these horses look really, really good.
Yeah.
I landed on the 9 Embolden in here. I just
One of the few with experience, by the way.
Right, and a good experience it was, right? At Monmouth. I'm not sure if you called that race. That was in
I was
July.
gone. No, I was in Buffalo.
But second to Maru, which was a really impressive debut winner.
Big debut
very
winner.
highly regarded. Paco Lopez is in the irons there. He's retains the mount here for Michael Stidham. I think this horse could potentially go off as the favorite in here, but I landed on him number 1.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how much we see Paco, because obviously Monmouth runs Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think we'll see a lot of it, because Parks doesn't run Thursday. Parks is actually off for a little while, I think. But, some of these tracks that these guys are regulars at might not run Thursday, so we might see some of them just Thursday. We might see some of them just Saturday. So going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But again, these kind of races are the ones I'm terrible at, so I will usually sit out and just view as a spectator. I have become a bit of a Kent Sweezy fan, and he's got the number 13 appraised. What did you make of that one? Because I find that Kent's not great with firsters, but I feel like his horses, at least when I was at Monmouth, they can run.
Yeah, I was talking to Kent on Twitter the other day. We went to high school together, actually. We were in some of the same classes. And he said he was eager to get this one on the grass. So comes in with some good works, gets a good jock. Speaking of jocks that like Colonial.
Yeah, all-time leading rider.
Right. So I gave that one a big shot.
By a long ways, too.
Yes.
Like I think he was, like millions of dollars in earnings ahead of everybody else. Yeah. I don't know. Just a race that's just so not in my wheelhouse, and so I'm going to trust you. You're more the breeding guy.
Yeah, I found some pedigrees in here. Some that looked like they were gonna do well on the turf. The part of the entry, Coleraine.
Yeah.
I thought had a very interesting turf pedigree. I picked that one in the 3rd spot.
Yeah, as far as the pick 4s and pick 5s, I have a feeling this is the race where people are going to feel obligated to spread because A, we don't have a ton of information, and B,
13 betting interests. Yeah,
and so I think people are going to try to be a little more narrow in that dirt race and be spreading here. And then, of course, we get to the next race, which is the 8th race on the card, and it's a mile and a 16th, again, on the inner turf. And, again, a little bit more of a smaller field. So I just think in general the psychology for a lot of bettors is smaller field. Now I can go smaller, bigger field. I'm going to spread more, which, the goal is to kind of be away from where everybody else is, because that's when you make your money. And so, inherently I was thinking, you want to go narrow in that 13-horse field, but that particular one seems like a tough one. But I thought there was some nice little horses in here, and it made for an intriguing race. It's a nice $60,000 purse.
Yeah, there wasn't a tremendous amount of separation in here,
Yeah.
I thought. I landed on a horse who hasn't started since December of last year, the 3 Princess Chope. Is that how you say it?
I don't know yet.
I'm gonna
look up what John. This is my homework for tonight. I'm looking up what John Dooley and Kurt Becker said in the last 2 starts.
I think this horse could go off favorite. It's Graham again, but I liked that last race at Fairgrounds. Finished second by a neck. At this level, I mean, I think if she's ready to go first time, at first asking, first time since December, I think she'll be really tough in here.
I think if she runs her race, she's very, very tough. I actually liked a long shot in here, the number 6 Aggie's Kate. Kind of tossed that last race in a sense, but the horse that won, Kim K, is actually a really good runner. She led the Indiana Oaks into the stretch and ran a pretty decent. I mean, she got beat a little ways by the end, but she was keeping up with some pretty nice fillies in that race. And so I just think that as an optional claimers go, that one was particularly tough. And you go back a couple of starts to the synthetic track, and that was kind of what gave me the hint on this horse, is that it ran pretty good. And this horse has run on the synthetic 3 times, and it's her 3 best efforts. And so now getting on the grass course, hoping that horses often that run well in synthetic and grass, it's a little more interchangeable maybe than dirt and turf. So that's kind of my hope with that one. And I think it's going to be a price, because I think Zonda on the outside is going to take some dough as well.
Yeah, I wanted to like Zonda a little bit. I just didn't know that she was going to have any pace to run into.
Yeah.
I couldn't find any speed in this race. I don't know who's going to go to the front. I thought maybe the 3, if she's ready to go first time, could reluctantly steal this race on the front end. Just nobody seems interested in going to the front. So I just didn't think that Zonda was going to have anything to run into. I
kind of think the inside 2 are going to try to go. I mean, the 2 horse is a big bomber. Has been running on the main track at Charlestown, so it's obviously a whole different ball game. But has shown speed in the past, and I know that dirt speed and turf speed don't always translate, but it's been showing sprint speed. And so to me, that one does have some early lick. And then the inside horse has just been sprinting. I know the horse was way back early on, but it was a slow start kind of thing. And if you look, and it even had a slow start in the first start, but was behind some pretty wicked early paces there. And withdrawing the inside and a route and not a lot of other speed, I thought maybe their go-to move could be to send.
Just one more horse to mention, Honest Ginger. This is kind of my long shot in here. Okay. Has been running in $8,000 claiming races at Prescott, but those are open $8,000 claimers. Those are sometimes a lot tougher than they can read on paper. So I was going to give her a little bit of a shot, because she's been running good at that level too. So if she can transfer to the turf off those synthetic races, I'm going to give her a little bit of a shot.
Let's go to the 9th race, which starts the late daily double. We're sprinting on the outer turf course here, and another big full field here. We have 11 runners in this one, and you made a kind of a tepid favorite in Faction Cat at 7-2. One of those races again where I didn't think anybody stood out. I mean, we kind of went over the morning line together, and.
Well, he has a history of being a favorite.
Exactly.
He's been a bit of a money burner recently. He burned a lot of money in his last 2 races. I did pick him on top. I do think he'll be the favorite, so maybe he'll be burning my money today. I just thought that he looked the best on form in here. If you go back to his turf race 2 back, I thought that was just a really good race. The winner of both of those last 2 races, they came back to each win their next starts. So I think he's been facing good horses. I think he's just the class of this field.
Yeah, pretty good group. There is a fair bit of, there's a lot of dirt horses in this race, though, which is interesting. Not always primarily been dirt. The 5 Sharp Art has primarily been dirt. Belle Tapisserie has primarily been dirt. The last couple for the 2 Alice have been dirt. So, I mean, just a lot of horses kind of transferring surfaces, or at least who haven't been running as much on turf. Even Holiday Bonus has only got a couple turf starts out of her last 10. Fire on Fire is probably the most turfy in the field, along with Rapid Dan, the two of the outside runners.
Yeah, Sharp Art you mentioned. I think this is the best speed in here. The horse that's going to actually clear them if that dirt speed transfers to turf. Hasn't performed on turf before, but
I feel like it does sometimes, but a lot of times it doesn't. It's just it's weird how. But I mean, this horse is capable of putting up 22 quarters and stuff like that. So
well, with Paco in there, I suspect he'll try to go to the front. Fire on Fire definitely used this one. I thought this was very usable. Third in a $25,000 claimer at Belmont, 6 furlongs. That running time was 107.3 there, so they were flying there, and he was only beating a length after going wide throughout. So definitely threw them in.
Yeah, and I mean, 25,000 in New York is a very, very tough race, and so what does it equate to? 40,000 here? Could.
Yeah, I think so. I'd say yes.
We're going to find out. Hide the Demon has been keeping really, really good company, and has run well at Arlington Park, which is the synthetic. Only has the one turf race, and that was at Keeneland, and it was
not a bad race.
Not the best, but it was also a stakes race, $200,000 event, and beat 3 lengths. So it looks not that great in terms of just the line, but it's a pretty salty group. So again, a race that I saw as being kind of tough to be too narrow.
Another one.
Yeah, I know. That's what I say. That's what I'm saying about the pick 5. I think a lot of people will zero in on that motion horse, the 3 and race it, the Princess Choke we talked about. I have a feeling that might be the single of the sequence.
Princess Choke.
Yeah, or possibly one of the ones in the dirt races and the 6 races. It's going to be, how people structure their tickets for this pick 5 is going to be very interesting because it's very, very tough.
Challenging, yeah.
Yeah. 10th and final race. We're a mile and a 16th and $10,000 claimers on the inner turf. Ending the night with 14 runners.
No singles here.
Did you make Blarp the favorite?
I did make Blarp the favorite.
What a fun name to say, though.
Yeah. So have fun when you're calling the race.
I love calling Blarp.
Hope he wins. And he has won in 3 of his last 4 starts. So if you draw a line through the last one, he strung together 3 consecutive wins. Again, just hard to tell about that Suffolk form.
Yeah.
Ran for 20, so it cuts the tag in half, dropping in class.
The Suffolk grass course is a little funky, I think. Just from looking at it, it almost looks like it undulates a little bit when they were running. I was there, and it has an unusual look to it, to how they handle it. But he certainly was loving life at Tampa and Delaware back in the springtime. So again, if he can transfer that, but so many different ways to go here. I thought that Done Acting is a very, very solid chance in this race. I think that horse will get some attention at the windows. Here's to Mike has been consistent, but I feel like he's kind of, he's at his level, but I feel like there's a few horses in here, like that one I just mentioned, Done Acting, who are kind of dropping down a little bit, who might have a little bit of a class advantage.
Nice turf win for Here's to Mike. Yeah. I circled that one on there. Unspoiled Moments I thought was interesting. A nice win last time out at Tampa in an off the turf race.
Yeah.
The only concern there, 0 for 9 on the turf.
That's a pretty big concern to me.
But there's a lot of horses like that too, actually, throughout this card. So.
Yeah, I think the Classeris horse on the outside, I think will probably get maybe a little bit of long shot attention, just because it seems like the last couple have not been all that great, and it does seem like they're just trying to find this horse's level. But his back class, which is really only from a year ago, is really pretty salty. I mean, he was winning open 25,000s at Belmont and getting high 80s Briz numbers, which would win this race pretty handily. And so I thought as a 15-1 shot, you could do worse. We haven't, the horse was down at Gulfstream, big prices in those races. I think he's justifiably going to be a pretty big price, but to me, if he wakes up or if he's just feeling a little bit better after a little bit of a break, I thought he could be a long one worth seeing.
So we're giving out 15-1 shots in the last leg of the pick 5. So
you better believe
if you got 4 winners going into this race and half the field covered, you still can't be feeling very comfortable.
No, it's I sat and thought hard about how I would kind of go through it and strike. I mean, I was in a way overwhelmed. Like it's very difficult, and for horse players, sometimes that's the most rewarding part, is being able to do that. And so if you can, we salute you. But it's going to be a really, really fun night. I'm excited for it. Merv, 5 p.m. first post. We'll have some pre-race festivities honoring a lot of the dignitaries that helped bring racing back to Virginia. But Merv and I will be on the simulcast signal. We'll be talking about the races between races. Again, we're talking about all these races about a day and a half before they actually happen. So we don't know the scratches yet. And that's why I say tune into the live show and follow our Twitters, because we will talk a little bit more throughout the card, maybe who's taking money, who's looking good on the track, all that kind of fun stuff. But going to be a fun, historic night here on Thursday.
Yeah, and very player friendly, right? We mentioned the 12% pick 5, but also win, play, show 16% takeout, also very player friendly, and average field size of 10.7 pre-scratch. So very good wagering product on the night.
Yeah, going to be fun. We look forward to seeing you guys here at Colonial Downs or wherever you wager on the races, and best of luck.